Ita for charging my son rent. Need some advice here. My 17-year-old son has really taken off with his live streaming career in the past 6 months. He's doing so well that he's been able to upgrade his room into a pretty awesome streaming studio. We're talking multiple monitors, TVs, top-of-the-line streaming gear, the works. He's pulling in around $3,000 a month, which is really impressive for his age. I originally thought he was just blowing his allowance and lying to me, but I have seen his bank account and it checks out. He didn't actually tell me that he was making money until I pressed him, which was weird, but he came clean and showed me his Kick and Twitch profiles. Given his new financial situation, I thought it might be a good idea for him to start paying a small amount of rent, like $600 a month. Something comparable to what a 2-bedroom should go for, given he has 500 square feet for his room, an ensuite, and a lounge for his sole use. I see it as a way to teach him about the responsibilities of adulthood and managing finances. However, my wife isn't on board. She thinks we shouldn't ask for rent, period, and that it's our job to give him a roof regardless of external circumstances. Plus, he utilizes our Wi-Fi and electric to stream. I suggested that we put away his rent money for his future, but still no bueno. Now, he finished high school early and has been streaming over his gap year before he decides if he wants to go to college. This has led to some pretty heated discussions between us, with my wife accusing me of being too harsh and not appreciating our son's youth. On my end, I feel like I'm just being realistic and preparing him for the real world. I had to pay rent as soon as I made an adult wage when I was growing up. I'm conflicted because I want to help him learn about real-world responsibilities, but I also get he's not technically an adult yet. So, Atita for wanting my son to contribute a bit to the household now that he's earning his own money. Are you claiming him as a dependent? If you charge him better, take that off your taxes, bud. Very good point. Wonder if he realizes he'd need to remove him as a dependent and add the rent as income. He also probably isn't considering that if he files with his son as a dependent, he either has to include his son's income or the son has to file taxes. The IRS will want their cut from his earnings. He will receive a 1099 NEC, and being 17 isn't going to save him from having to file and pay. I filed my first tax at 15. Also, he can't falsify as the 1099 NE is filed by the platform. He will probably receive one for each platform, as the cutoff is at $601 for the tax year in earnings. I wonder if Dad helped his son prepare for the real world with this, such as explaining taxes, how to figure his owing, and putting those funds back for the check due in April. Streaming earnings are taxed pretty high, and he is pulling more than the average American pulls monthly. ETA, he most likely can't claim the child as a dependent with his level of income, at least not to where it won't get uncomfortable under an audit. If a dependent minor can provide half of their own support, they are no longer considered a dependent. And there is 0 age minimum on that. It's based on income of the potential dependent. If an audit shows son made like $15,000, questions will be asked. It's pretty hard to claim you provide more than half the support when the dependent has income higher than what's nationally considered poverty in 2023. ETA, apparently parents can no longer include the dependent's income for them on their taxes. I only ever heard that option from my parents, with how their taxes were filed between 14 and 16. I always just filed my own. If Dad wants to teach his son something about adulting, he'd better start with income tax, not rent. Yep, the IRS don't play. Dual lesson. Charge rent, aka the amount of money that the feds would want per month out of his income, and put it aside. When taxes come around, he can use that money for the taxes. And if for whatever reason he doesn't get taxed or as high as calculated, congratulations, you have some extra money. I don't think this Dad's intention was to teach him anything to bah. Yeah, Dad seems to have another agenda. Teach taxes as soon as earnings start. Don't ask for rent till reaching sustainability in a gig. Even if he claims the son, the income is filed with the earner. Parents don't include children's income with their own return. But yes, this kid absolutely needs to be filing taxes. and I would be surprised if he's prepared for that. I only knew that as an option from my parents telling me about how their income was taxed between 14 and 16. I didn't know that was no longer a viable option. Either way, I very highly doubt the son is prepared for his taxes. Dad wants Rent to teach about the real world. Taxes are a bigger part than paying bills. I hope the son has put back some savings somewhere that he can use in April. ETA, the son is ineligible as a dependent anyways. The IRS qualifications for a dependent includes the person's gross income for the year must be less than $4,300. You do not include the son's income on the parent's return. Son needs to do his own return with the 1099-A he is going to receive. Son does his own return as a dependent or non-dependent. My dad used to claim me, and then we would figure out what my return would have been, and he paid me that. BC, it made more sense for him to claim me. But I was working at 15 and a half part-time and off and on before I turned 18, and this was back in the early 80s, so it has likely changed a lot. That's similar to what my parents also did, so I didn't know. At 15, I earned too much to not file, so I only know that route. Yeah, he should pay taxes. Bet that's not a hooning. The cutoff was supposed to change to $600 this year, but due to the IRS being short-staffed, they postponed the change. It is now set to go into effect next year. Because of this, the current cutoff has been reverted back to $20,000. Given the equipment he listed along with his son's monthly income, I truly expect he combined is over still, but maybe he will luck out and not be. If he's pulling that kind of money, he undoubtedly has also received lump sums from brand deals, which also need to be claimed in income. I was thinking about all this too when I started my job at 15.5, but then I realized I was working 30 hours a week and only making $5.50 an hour. This is all false. There is no gross income test for a dependent child under 19. There is a support test, which is whether the kid supports himself. And the child would file his own income tax return. A child's income would never go on the parent's return. If he charges the kid rent for space that is exclusively business use, the kid could deduct it as a business expense, and the dad would probably be able to wipe out that income with allocated depreciation and utilities and whatnot. And then yes, he could gift the money back to the kid by funding a Roth IRA for the kid with the rent money up to $7,000 and putting the rest in a high-yield savings. With his income, he has to file as return. There is zero possibility he is below the line of not being required to file taxes. If his income is as substantial as the father is saying and an audit occurs, it's going to quickly become messy, as the IRS is going to start requesting proof the parents are providing 51% or more of the child's support. Yes, he can claim the kid because his age will stop flags from going up during filing. But if you refer to publication 17 and look at it realistically, as the IRS is greedy and absolutely wants to limit the amount of credits it gives out, the son's income will definitely raise messy red flags. Also, if you would have read the bottom edit, I addressed that my knowledge of parents claiming is outdated as it was from my parents' childhood experience. By 17, I was no longer qualified as a dependent on my parents' taxes due to my personal income. I know this as my parents got audited when I was 23, and they had to pay back a significant amount for the credits they received when I was 17, 18, and a full-time student at 19. It has nothing to do with income at those ages. It has to do with whether the child supports himself. Money out, not money in. He could make $1 million a year, and if it all goes in the bank and dad still pays all his living expenses, he's a dependent. You are actually incorrect on this. I file taxes for a living. As long as he's under the age of 19 by the end of the year, or under the age of 24 and a full-time student after that, it doesn't matter how much he makes, you can still claim him as a dependent. This does, however, impact how he will pay his taxes, because he will not be able to claim himself as a dependent, and it will increase his tax liability. please refer to line 4 of the Tests to be a Qualifying Child table. If you would like to have irs.gov//content global media/review of the rules for claiming 40112.clatif.gov/livita content global media overview of the rules for claiming 412 PDF. If you would like to have some bedtime reading of legalese, you can also review Publication 17, both of which are on the IRS website for tax rules. I didn't realize OP was seeking tax advice. I wonder if Dad helped his son prepare for the real world with this, such as explaining taxes, how to figure his owing, and putting those funds back for the check due in April. It doesn't sound like it, but if they did everything above board, OP should have. In fact, if you're under 18, streamers are only allowed to progress to affiliate status, become monetized, if the parent signs the monetized streamer agreement. Possibly OP did, and just didn't take it very seriously because he didn't expect his kid to actually earn anything, but it is a legal document, and Twitch requires that parents go through the paperwork with their kids. I know this isn't the question OP is asking about, but considering his reason for charging rent is to teach his son fiscal responsibility, hopefully he's covered this already. One can hope. His surprise at the discovery his son was making that kind of money, though, is concerning. It's pretty easy to sign something saying you went over the information with a person without actually doing it. Twitch is fully covered, which is bad news for father and son, if this is the case. If the son lied and said he's 18 plus and Twitch finds out, he's fucked, and they will absolutely permaban for that. The IRS gets that cut that want. Take the space out of the IRS, theirs. I'd like to know where you can rent a 2-bedroom apartment for $600, right? Where I live, studios are 1,800, 2,300s, studios. I'd like to know how much rent OP would be charging if the kid wasn't making any money. Because this reads like OP had zero faith in the kid and now wants to get his greedy hands on some easy cash. The kid using Wi-Fi and electric was apparently not an issue before OP found out about the 3 kells per month. Why all of a sudden teach the kid about the real world now when it wasn't a priority before? Because you can't squeeze blood from a stone. Why charge him rent if he has no income? How would he pay it? Charging him rent, but actually saving it for when he moves out and or goes to school like OP mentioned, is a good idea and not all that uncommon. He's making dollar. Streaming is what I read. OP did say he planned to put the money back in savings for the kid when the kid became fully independent. My thoughts exactly. Yeah, makes me wonder why kiddo was hesitant to show Dad the numbers in the first place. Probably knew this would happen. 2-bedroom places go for $3,000 a month in Oakland, California area. I live in a relatively LCOL town on the outskirts of a major city. Before I got married and we moved into our current townhome, we lived in a 500 square foot apartment. It was $1,100 a month. OP is an asshole and also stupid and disconnected. I hope the kid moves out the minute he turns 18 and never looks back. Right? Average in my area for 2-bedroom is $2,500. In smaller cities, you can still find them. I live in a small area in Illinois, and you can get one for $540 a month. But OP, if you do this, no tax benefit, be prepared for him to eventually go no contact as well. I can see you having him get his own snacks and drinks, like sodas for him, but until he's 18, he's still your responsibility. Not in my state. In the OP's youth, rent was that low. Southern Missouri or any rural area, you'd be amazed how cheap housing is once you get out of urban and suburban areas. Less idiots, too. Michigan, I got a 2BR heat water included, $580 a month. It was $550 a year ago. The rural Midwest, the kind of person who thinks like OP, still thinks you can rent a 2-bedroom apartment for $600. OP's place. Sounds like the kid has the same amount of space as an apartment. Throw up a room divider, add a mini fridge and microwave, and you're good. You easily could in Kentucky, West Virginia. My son pays $300 a month, and so does his roommate. Facts. I live in a small but somewhat popular town in KY, and I used to split a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment with a friend, and our total was $350 a month without utilities. Lol, it came out to around like $250-ish per person with utilities. Yes, it was small as hell and looked fresh out of the 70s, but it was cheap as lol. In NYC, that would still be at least $3K a month, and depending on bureau, I'm lowballing it. I suddenly want to move to KY. That was my first thought. Before COVID, I could get a 1-bed, 1-bath for about $540 where I live. I think those are up to about $800 now. I don't think I've ever seen a 2-bed for $600 or less. 1-bed, 1-bath is around $2,000 where I am. You and me both. I live in St. Cloud, MN, and it's mostly a college town, so that's part of it, but $600 to $700 is about the range for rent. Was going to comment this as well. My 2-bedroom is $1,450 in Oregon. Something comparable to what a 2-bedroom should go for, right? My thought when I read that was, this person has obviously not rented in a while. Lol. Apparently you can. I live in an expensive area. I was thinking this very thing. 2-bedroom around San Diego is $3,000. In Oklahoma, you can, only if you either don't live in a metro area or live in one of the worst areas of OKC or Tulsa. If you live in Norman, forget about it. I live about an hour from Tulsa at your parents' house. I currently live in Missouri, but I'm from Tennessee. In both states, you can still find 2-bed apartments for around $600 to $700, but they aren't nice. Shittier parts of Memphis. Not here in Chicago. Kabul, rural, middle of the country. My son rents out an apartment in the upstairs portion of our home to his cousin and the cousin's GF. He gets $300 per month for the space, which includes 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, living room, dining area, and kitchen. Smaller towns, or even larger cities in cheaper states, can sometimes have apartments for that much. I live in a 1-bedroom for $425, but I live in a town of only 200 people. Ohio, I had a 2-bedroom, 2-bath townhouse for $700 a month. This was my question. I'd be living my best life every day if rent for a 2-bedroom cost $600. Where I live, you can't even rent a shared room in a high crime area without kitchen privileges for under $750 a month. I live in North Carolina, BF, and I live in a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom apt, and only recently started paying about $700. It was originally around $650. Mind you, there is no maintenance crew and there's mold and mildew everywhere. We've had a few missing kitchen drawers for a few years, even after pressing the landlord about replacing them, but nothing has come of it. Also, our apartment is the only one that hasn't been upgraded. Carpet is coming up and paint is peeling from the walls. For real, Lynxplas, a cute small town in central North Dakota, assuming the closest interstate hasn't been closed due to weather. I rent out my 2-bedroom upper unit for that in STL, but I intentionally charge under market rate because I'm only doing this to provide affordable housing. I don't live in a HCOL area, and the average 1-bedroom here is well over $1 per mo. Probably doesn't even think about it, or he wouldn't be asking this question. The tax break is good enough, lol. Edit. Honestly, if he was smart, he would keep the kid as dependent until 20s, reap the tax benefits, and allow his kid to live at the house. Have him contribute to food or whatever, since I'm 1 year he will be 18. It's in everyone's best interest